And welcome back to Mixed Media Live. It is a happy Friday, so good Friday, everyone out there. Hope you had a good work week. We are here to talk about 3 brand new topics. Mixed Media is a weekly podcast happening every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It is 4 p.m., I think, in Ben's time, if I did the math correctly. I hope everyone's ready for a good round of talking about art. That's what we do. We talk about art in all of its capacities, particularly our personal fields of interest. So, filmmaking, music, gaming, and, all the things that come with that, whether that's business or viewing stuff or, everything in between, practically. I guess we'll go around introducing ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella. There's that beautiful logo right there, that Ariella logo. Also got it. Oh, no, wrong sleeve. There it is. No, wrong sleeve. Can I find it? It's hard to see on the camera. There it is. There's that Ariella logo. I'm very proud of my company, obviously. So you can find my website at ariella.co.
I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
I'm Nathan, and I'm a game developer and 3D modeler.
So the first thing I'd like to say is thank you guys who've stuck around with us, who've keep listening to our podcast. You guys are all awesome. Oh, we got Miss Costello in the house. What about the Ariella theme song? Yeah, this is not an Ariella show in per se. This is our just our different personas coming on the show. So I have this sort of generic song at the intro that is copyright free. Oh, New York. You guys can probably hear that.
You'll probably hear LA at some point when I'm talking, so.
Yeah, the cities speak. So how are you guys' weeks? Like, what have you guys been up to? What's going on?
Been listening to a lot of different stuff. A lot of good Russian music, of course, and been listening to what's it called? Frozen. I've been listening to Frozen the past few days, and also Beauty and the Beast, because as I pointed out on our Discord the other day, was the 30th anniversary of its premiere. Not its public release was in November, but it premiered in I think the New York Film Festival 30 years ago. I think Wednesday. So revisiting that. I also got to go to a really nice talk that my school put on called Music and Musicians and Entrepreneurship. That was a very fascinating talk. I think I was the only instrumentalist who was there though. Is that everyone else was doing music production or composition. So interesting. A lot of interesting stuff there.
Cool. How about you, Nathan?
Tired, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Are you in midterm season yet, or no? You're still at the early part of the year. Yeah,
it's like it's been like a quarter of the school year, something like that.
Yeah. Have fun with that. Yeah, same for me. I've been ridiculously busy. I think I said a few weeks ago, it's like, oh yeah, I finished the big projects, and then you kind of get slammed with all the little things you didn't do during the big project season. So I'm still closing out one of those big projects. I've got a new client I've taken up. Takes a good bit of time. I'm preparing for a showcase on next Sunday. So it's kind of going crazy. So I did promise a whole bunch of podcast upgrades 3 weeks ago or something like that. But that is the nature of the game when you are running this podcast, just for fun, just for the fun of it. And to, I don't know, make people happy. And also, just fun for ourselves too, talk about our arts. That being said, one podcast upgrade I've been pitching for a while now, and you will not stop hearing this unless you give it to me. If you go to mixedmedia.locals.com, I still have not yet put the tiers, so that's my fault. But what I can promise is that whiteboard right there. My iPad's not next to me, so I can't draw on it right now. But that whiteboard right there is a live whiteboard, meaning if you have access to the link that gets you to that live whiteboard, you can draw on it live. So like while we're talking, you can doodle, you can, I don't know, yell at us through your drawings or something like that, as long as you keep it appropriate. But the way you get lifetime access to that is you become a bottom tier for like the first, I don't know, however many people. As long as you see that the bottom tier has this there, then you'll have lifetime access to this whiteboard. So I might do that for like the first 5 bottom tier people. Then it'll become like a top tier thing, right? So that $5 a month will directly go to our Rumble membership, where we can start live streaming there, which I think would be pretty big for the podcast. So that is my pitch. I guess Ben can take it away with his topic.
Sure. We're going to talk a little bit about music streaming and some of the good and negative things about it, or maybe I shouldn't say good things about it, but more on the bad parts about it and how to address them. So, basically, I'm sure everyone knows about music streaming because that's generally how we listen to music these days, generally. There's been a bit of a resurgence in physical LPs, records, recently, but that doesn't really offset the fact that generally we're listening to music from some kind of streaming service, and it's been that way since the arrival of the iPod many years ago, basically. And it's really changed quite a bit about how musicians make money off of their music. There's a lot less clarity about how you make your money because everything is being kind of mediated by one of these companies. For instance, you can see if you're watching live, you can see a picture of Daniel Elk, the CEO of Spotify, on there, and it's a good place to start because in some ways Spotify is the most talked about and one of the most popular music streaming platforms.
Before you continue on, I would like to say that Mr. Elk just looks evil. Like, even if he was the nicest person on planet Earth, there's nothing he could do to his image. Like, look at that picture. Like, all of his pictures are like that. Just, he looks like, I don't know, a villain.
Yeah. So he's come under some fire, not only from artists, thinking that they're not getting paid enough money for streams, but also for his comments that, like, ones he made last year, where he said basically artists who are complaining that they're not getting enough money are lazy, and you can't just put out something every 3 or 4 years and hope that you're gonna make money like you used to be able to. You got to keep pumping out music, and that's the way to make more money. Which we can look at that in 2 ways. Like, logically, if you put out a lot more stuff, right? Of course you're going to make money, but that's not what the argument is, right? The argument is that they're not making money off what is already out there. So that's a kind of a useless, like, it's not even talking about the same thing.
It's also extremely self-serving.
Also, right. Unless you're talking about like legacy bands, like, I don't know, like the Eagles or something, that come out with like a new, album every few years. Other than that, I mean, they don't have to worry about that anyway because they're making all their money off of royalties from stuff they did in the 60s and 70s. Okay, but nobody else just releases, a track and then waits 3 years to make another track, and it's like, why am I not making money? But it's not what artists do. No musician is doing that. Okay, and then complaining that they're not making enough money. So Spotify, they're also less transparent than a lot of these other streaming services, which none of them are terribly transparent about how they divide their money up. So the basic model that all of these companies are adopting is that there's some percentage, and they don't necessarily disclose what the percentage is, but some percentage of revenue goes to artists, as a pool, and the rest goes to the company itself. Not entirely clear what the percentage is. It's estimated to be about 70% going to artists, content creators. Of course, that has to get filtered through the record labels, so even less reaches the actual musicians. And then so about 30% goes to the company for Spotify. So that's the estimate, and of course it varies by different companies. And of course, that revenue is generally being generated from ad revenue or from subscriptions to get, to not have to listen to ads. So the other argument that they put out is that if you want to get more money, then you just have to encourage your followers to pay for our subscriptions. Now, whether that's something that an artist can actually affect, right? It's questionable. Also, almost all of these, with one exception, amongst the big streaming services, they're not paying artists by raw stream. It's not like each stream gets this much money, although you can eventually calculate it out that way. But what they're doing is they're saying out of a total number of streams across every artist, in whatever the period is, and within the quarter, I guess, right? We have, let's say we have 10,000 streams, just as an example. And out of those, Taylor Swift is 25% of them. She gets 25% of revenue.
Wow.
So, her label, and then.
Oh, okay. I understood. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
I watched a video showing how you can take advantage of that by just buying old used phones for cheap, and then just playing your own songs on Spotify because of your percentage increases.
Apparently, this is a thing, though. Actually, there are some underground artists that try because it's not just for getting money; it's also for sort of cheating the algorithm in terms of recommended songs and stuff like that, which I think is hilariously broken.
Oh, right. Well, Spotify is known to for their suggested tracks to act not actually to basically invent things, or hire some random person, some random unknown pianist, record 5 minutes of Beethoven, and they'll say, this is our recommended Beethoven for you, right? And it's not what you're looking for, and the person doesn't even know what they're being asked to do, so they're taking a terrible deal, and which is drawing views away from Vladimir Ashkenazy or some other great pianist who actually has recorded this work in a serious manner. So yeah, there's that too. Spotify has lots of questionable practices. I think that for me the most unfortunate fact about Spotify, and you can look up Daniel Elk if you want, and you can find a little bit about his past, but the main thing I would focus on is that he has had a great sense of how to take advantage of markets even as a kid. So apparently when he was in middle school, he figured out that he could convince other kids to work in his company by just bribing them with video games, and he would charge $5,000 to make websites for people, but have his classmates do it. Yeah. He briefly was ran as a CEO of uTorrent.
Oh wait, what is that?
It's one of the
for downloading things using torrenting, right?
Right.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is generally used for pirating things, right?
Exactly. So he's was heavily involved for a while with one of the biggest pieces of software for illegally sharing music. And then he decides to found Spotify to, quote, remedy the problem that these poor artists aren't getting paid anything because of piracy. Like, okay, so you helped contribute to piracy becoming, a big thing, and now you're gonna remedy it yourself.
You have to understand. You have to believe him this time instead of last time, of course.
Yeah. So Spotify, in my opinion, does not necessarily hold the moral high ground. Not that any of these big companies necessarily do. Yeah. So that's Spotify, and basically all the big companies operate in this manner, except for Deezer, which has this model of if you are a subscriber to their service, premium service, 100% of your money goes to the artists you listen to, divided up by percentage of what you listen to. So, which in theory is a great thing, because I may, if I go on to Spotify and I listen to only Bob Dylan. I mean, I shouldn't use that. I don't know why that's the first artist that popped into my head. He's too big. I listen to some artists that I like, right? And I don't listen to Taylor Swift at all. I'm just making up 25%, but let's say she has 25% of all views or streams, listens, whatever. None of my money would go to Taylor Swift. It would all go to people that I listen to. So one, you feel better about that than you would in Spotify if you're paying for Spotify Premium, where if you don't listen to Taylor Swift, whatever percent she gets generally also comes from what you're paying. And in theory, that should also make a lot of smaller artists get more money. The issue though is that Deezer and the other streaming platforms that issue the highest amount per stream, like Pandora, have such small user bases and generally small catalogs that you end up making less money anyway on average than you do on one of these big platforms, which just have so many more millions of users. I think Deezer has 1% of Spotify's user base. So even if you literally, would make more of the same user base, you don't have that user base. So that's generally the problem with the sites that offer the highest amount of revenue. They have such small user bases and limited catalogs that the artists don't get to make any money off of them, and they're not very enticing because of that.
What about Tidal?
Yeah. So Tidal is another one that has the highest amount paid to artists per stream, but again, kind of limited user base, and it's also got a lot of controversy surrounding it and what they allow on there. So, and it's kind of genre specific too. So you can't go on to and listen to, if you're a film music fan, you can't listen to John Williams. So, in theory, again, a good emerging alternative, but it needs some things worked out about it.
What's it restricted to? I had never heard of it before.
It's Jay-Z's platform.
So I think it's to like hip hop, rap, and R&B.
I think you would expand that if it becomes successful, because I don't see why you wouldn't.
It's been around for a long time now, right? Like
for a few years, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anything about it though, really.
What was it called?
I don't know too much about it either. Tidal.
Okay.
Yeah, I and there have been some recent controversies surrounding it, so that's something that maybe one day could be, if the management gets its act together and allows more things on it, could disrupt all of this. There's some other things too, about other things that are noted about streaming. as well. So just so you have a general like baseline. Again, these things are really hard to calculate too, because Spotify does other things where they don't just do by revenue by stream. They also take into account your location. So you get different amounts per stream from different countries. And also they have an algorithm that determines something about no one knows what it is, but based on length. So like a listen, it's not, no one even knows whether it's like if you listen to something longer, you get more per stream or you get less. It's not clear. My instinct says that you probably get less for something longer because they can't interrupt it with their ads. But it's not clear. We just know that there is a length component, at least in the United States calculation. But as just a baseline estimate, there's a really great post by a kind of up-and-coming composer who's currently John Powell's assistant, who is starting his own career in big films right now. And so he posted this on Facebook, not publicly, but in a group the Nightman. And he calculated that across all platforms, just for United States listens only, if you have 275,000 streams evenly distributed across the Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Music, you make $90. So almost 300,000 streams to get $90. That's
nuts.
Yeah, and that's as the artist who owns the royalties. They don't own publishing though, so the publishers make 10 times that amount. That's still very little.
That's 1.5 copies of a AAA game.
Right. So if you think about that, like for 300,000 listens, streams, whatever you want to call it, if you combine $90 and $900, we'll round that to 1,000, right? Instead of 990, $1,000 distributed to the artist side. Now, I don't think it takes. I don't know exactly how you calculate it, but if you just think about like a CD sale and say the CD, an average CD costs like $20, so it's probably around $15 to $20 for most CDs. What that is, like 50 sales to make $1,000 versus 300,000 streams.
At this point, I wonder why people would even put their music on Spotify, not put it on YouTube for free. Like what's even the point of that? Like you might as well just open it up to everybody, so that, and then try to get your revenue from other sources like clothing or something like that.
Because that's how people listen to it. I mean, you want to make it's better to make something off of it than to make nothing, right?
But 90 for like was it like 300,000?
Yeah, we're rounding slightly, but we're gonna say 300,000. And obviously the calculation is a little bit off of the CDs because you have to factor in like manufacturing costs. But so instead of maybe 50 sales, we'll say 100 sales. But still, that's way less than 300,000 listens.
Okay.
I mean, even if you assume that 100 CD sales and each person listens to it 300 times, like, okay, so then maybe we're getting close to it, to like an equivalence. But how many times do people like generally in a short period of time listen to the CD 300 times in a row? Probably not that often, right?
You know what's crazy? I think at this point, YouTube would actually pay you more, which is disturbing.
Well, YouTube is actually, so it's a little bit confusing with YouTube because any song that is recognized as belonging to you, you make, I want to make sure I have the right number of zeros, but I believe it's 0.0008 cents if it's associated with you on YouTube.
That's insane.
Okay. And if it's through your official artist account, you make exactly double that.
How many zeros were we talking about? What did you say? You said 0. What?
0.0008 cents per stream, listen, view.
So for $8, you need 1,000 views. Is that what that is? 10,000?
No,
10,000, I
right?
think. Or
10,000, I think.
10,000, I think. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
10,000.
what a joke.
Okay.
So, okay, if we're comparing to the 300,000, then you multiply that by 30. 8 times 30 is like 240. So you technically do make more, but it's not good still.
No,
Well,
yeah, it's
no.
like
So the actual number, that's about a tenth. We'll get into that in a second, but that's far lower per stream than everything else. I don't know. Maybe we're forgetting some math somewhere along the line in our heads. Missing some zeros doing it, but yeah, YouTube is actually by far the worst for an artist, with one caveat. So really, the best thing to do, kind of echoing what Irving said a couple of weeks ago about, investing in physical media, right? Physical copies of film. I think generally is to purchase a physical copy of the music that you want to listen to. That way you don't have any issues of legality too. You don't have to worry about is this someone, posting this illegally on YouTube or something? And is it officially recognized as anything going to the artist? There's also the benefit too of, generally a lot more content is available. Like, for instance, if you buy the official soundtrack to Disney's Aladdin, okay, you can listen to all of it. If you go to Spotify or YouTube Music or any other of these major sites, you go to Aladdin, you can listen to all of it except Friend Like Me, sung by why am I not thinking of his name right now?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, right? That is blocked by all of these companies because for some reason I don't know why. I don't know whether that's coming from Disney or whether that's I don't understand why that is. But you can't listen to it. You're offered, at least on Spotify, when you try to listen to it, you're offered to listen to it in like every other language under the sun. But why do I want to listen to it in any other language? Like, I don't really care to hear the French version with someone else singing it, right? But it's not the same thing. So some content is restricted that way. You also get content that is, occasionally you'll find things that are slightly changed, such as if you're just going to listen, I'm using Disney as an example because Disney happens to be pretty egregious and obvious perpetrator of this kind of stuff. If you listen to the official soundtrack of Little Mermaid, okay, if I own it on a CD, I can listen to Part of Your World in its entirety. But if I try to listen to it on one of these streaming platforms, they get, instead of the rest of the album that you listen to, which is the same, you get a version that cuts out the beginning. And even in YouTube Music, they pull up a video from Disney with part of like the scene. So you miss all the beginning music for it. Why that is, I don't know. They figured that you're more interested in like seeing it. So, content sometimes not being exactly what you're looking for, what it actually is on the physical medium. This also, and it's kind of a balance. Generally, it's much easier to find a whole bunch of things on these big streaming platforms. They have an enormous range, and that's a good thing. It's often really hard to find copies of certain things, but certain other things that you might be interested in, you can't get on any of these streaming platforms. So again, going to Disney, there's a fantastic album that I bought, came out a few years ago. It's the Legacy edition of The Little Mermaid. It has all the music from the film, including, not the like big tracks, every single second of music that was recorded, plus demos where the composer Menken is playing the piano and Howard Ashman, the lyricist, is singing all the songs, which is very cool. Also, you get, great liner notes for that. You can't listen to that anywhere else. So it's only available as a CD. So, certain content like that. Again, Disney is a pretty big perpetrator of that. But it happens a lot with film music. There's a lot of film music that for some reason these companies, I don't know why, these studios do not want it released. So I just bought the other day very cheap CD of James Horner's Willow, which is a kind of famous score, and you can get a CD for like $5 online, but you can't listen to it anywhere else. So some content, yes, would be very hard to find in a physical format, but certain content you might be interested in, you can't get on any of these big streaming platforms, and you're even less likely to be able to find them on the smaller ones that may pay you a little bit more. So with all that in mind, generally, though, you're going to continue listening to music through a streaming service just because of its convenience and the range of what you can find on there. So my recommendation for streaming service is actually YouTube Music, which is separate from YouTube. YouTube Music is the highest rate money sent to artists per stream. It's a tiny bit ahead of Apple Music. So if you're a big Apple Music fan, you can stick with Apple Music. But yeah, YouTube Music is on average, about twice as much as a US stream on Spotify. Given all those parameters, it varies exactly how much you can calculate a Spotify stream being, but it's approximately double Spotify. It's 10 times what you get if you listen to it on YouTube. So you have to make sure you're listening to it on YouTube Music. If you are on our Discord, every link that I have shared to music is from YouTube Music for that reason. It's what I use. Also, I find it a little bit more convenient less frustrating to listen to than Spotify, because Spotify tends to go like a certain number of tracks or a certain amount of time before they interrupt your free service with ads, which on one hand is good with them. They give you these ads that last like 3 minutes, like a series of ads. And YouTube Music is a little bit less annoying because I found that you tend to get something, a very short ad, like a 5 to 10 second ad, either every track or every other track. And I find that a little bit less annoying than like the 3-minute ad barrage, maybe a little bit less frequently than you get on Spotify. So personally, I find it a little more convenient to listen to YouTube Music anyway. I no real way of knowing how extensive their catalog is compared to Spotify, but I've pretty much been able to find anything I've been able to find on Spotify. They have the same issues of certain material being left out, a lot of James Horner, James Newton Howard scores not being available. Same issues with Robin Williams singing "A Friend Like You" or "Friend Like Me" not being available. So you're not missing anything as far as I can tell compared to Spotify. So my recommendation is for the sake of artists, to not listen to YouTube definitely, but to go with YouTube Music over anything else.
Or buy your physical media. I think for me,
or buy the physical media where you can. Obviously a lot more upfront cost than just not paying anything to listen to something on one of these streaming sites. But sometimes I think it's worth it if you got material that you can't get otherwise, or you just really want to support the artist.
Yeah, and also physical media for music has a lot of different forms as well. I don't know if anyone really uses I don't know what's your opinion on something like iTunes, buying the rights to listen to the music rather than buying a CD or something like that. So
that's a whole another calculus about what that does for artists, and also the availability of what you're after. I think in a way that's probably more useful, given the fact that CDs are kind of increasingly irrelevant, not produced, and fewer there are fewer devices that can play them being put out today. So in the long term, that's probably better. I know a lot of people were kind of annoyed with John Powell recently when he been releasing some expanded editions of some of his biggest scores, with every second of music and alternate takes of things, and but he's only been releasing them digitally and as LPs. And there's a certain pod segment of the music world that was upset that he didn't release them as CDs, but the days of CDs are rapidly dwindling to a close. So eventually, especially if the math works out for purchasing digitally, that's probably the way to go. But I don't know exactly what the calculus is currently on that and revenue for artists.
My intuition is kind of like the problem with CDs obviously is portability, and like unlike films, you don't, your film doesn't need to be portable because you generally, well, I guess some people are strange and watch movies on subways. I've seen that before. That's kind of weird, but generally people sit down at home and they watch a movie, so portability is not as much of an issue. Whereas music, like, people want to be listening to it wherever they can. So it kind of presents like a unique issue with that. Yeah, definitely. And like, I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see how things evolve. I can only imagine that, other than it being part of an whatever word you want to put on it, like a oligarchy or a monopoly of companies, who sort of funnel all of these IPs into this space. Other than that, I think I'm hearing more and more artists talk about ownership and true ownership. I hear it a lot more in music than I do, maybe because they've been beaten to death. Maybe that's the reason why. Yeah.
I think it's also because increasingly, with the advent of certain kinds of technologies that are, increasingly learnable and acquirable
sure.
by almost anyone. It's become much easier to do all the sorts of things that you used to have a production label do for you. You can mix and master your own music right now, and you can, if you really want to, you may not be very effective if you don't know what you're doing and you don't have any guidance, but you can advertise it yourself too. So
yeah,
that does represent kind of a paradigm shift that's happening in the musical world, of people trying to have more ownership of their own stuff. Of course, that's not going to happen, in the world of like media music, where you don't own what you write. But for a lot of commercial music that is not like that, I think that's certainly a trend that's going to happen in the future. You're going to see even more artists having more full control over their own an ownership of their own music.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and if you are an indie artist and you need marketing help, I give free consultations on ariella.co. That is my plug. Just go to my website and fill the contact page. Anyway. Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I think I'm hopeful, minus the sort of anti-competitive nature of a lot of these things. There's a lot more than just because obviously there are multiple companies in this space, and I don't think that's enough of that's not enough of an analysis of the situation. There's a lot of nasty stuff that happens behind the scenes to artists, between these companies, and all of it ends up screwing the consumer at the end of the day, because competition doesn't properly happen, and hopefully that gets solved. Cross my fingers. Oh, and prediction that I gave when I was talking about Donda by Kanye came true. He did change the album. So, you know, I don't know if he sold the physical version
already.
of it, but yeah, he already changed it.
It's been like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I know. I called it. But you know, if you owned the CD, I don't know if he sold CDs or not, or I don't know what the heck he did with it, but if he sold CDs, if you have the old CD now, you have something that's like way more valuable than when you bought it. When you bought it, it was probably worth as much as the materials that it was printed on, practically speaking, in terms of reselling it and all that kind of stuff. But now you've got a collector's item, and that's pretty cool. So, you know, there's the immutability aspect of physical
Should have
media
bought
as
it.
well. I should have bought it, right? Yeah, I don't know. Cool.